Oh, thank you, sir. I'm going to feel a bit like the skunk at a picnic. Um, I very much appreciate that you're focusing on an issue that every citizen of the world should be focusing on, and I appreciate the sentiments of the two previous speakers. The young lady from Massachusetts uh, brought to our attention the campus protests on American university campuses, and the second gentleman referred to international law. Uh, so this is about morality and law. It should be, but it's not. And morality and law is not going to make a difference, unfortunately, because morality and law get trumped by money and the media. And the reality is that the US Congress has decided that they care more about money and a favorable media than they do about doing the right thing, in my opinion. Uh, every day, war crimes are being committed in Gaza. And yet, the United States continues to send money for the purpose of buying weapons, actually $20 billion of weaponry, the most lethal weapons that we have in the American arsenal, weapons that we wouldn't even use, let alone on a civilian population, 2,000-pound bombs, 500-pound bombs. I've got a list of all of the weaponry that has been sent to Israel. But perhaps even worse than that, we provide political cover for the Netanyahu government, which is proving itself to be not just a right-wing government, but a fascist and racist government that is deliberately committing genocide, ethnic cleansing of the Gazan population. I do think that their ultimate objective is obviously not a ceasefire. It's not to gain release of the Israeli hostages. It's to remove the Palestinians from Gaza, to force them into Egypt or any other country that will take them as refugees. This is a government that the people of Israel should be ashamed of. Some of them are. The U.S. should have no business cooperating with a government that is using our money, our material, our political cover to commit genocide against an entire civilian population. The atrocities that are occurring in Gaza are so much greater than what occurred in Bosnia. And yet the United States declared that to be a genocide. They knew that there were snipers, Serbian snipers that were deliberately targeting innocent civilians. We were horrified. Of course, we knew that because there was some media getting out of Bosnia, and it convinced President Clinton finally to bomb Serbia, Belgrade, which resulted in an end of the war. But the journalists in Gaza have been killed, have been intimidated, have been evicted if they were lucky, frankly. So very little Western media coverage has been provided of the atrocities that occur every day. And most of these atrocities are committed against women and children. If the American public was exposed to this, I do believe that most Americans would want their government to do something about it. But unfortunately, there's very little that can be done. Uh, the Biden-Harris administration has been bad on Gaza. They've been complicit in this genocide. But the Trump administration would be worse. His only dictum to Netanyahu is get it over with. He'd give him all the weapons he wanted, and his only suggestion is do it faster, do it in a more lethal manner. So I agree with the two previous speakers that the American electorate should be voting for the Harris-Walz ticket, because at least they express some sympathy with the Gazan population. But I can't suggest that it's going to mean a change in policy. The rest of the world should speak up. The rest of the world, Europe in particular, should not be so feckless to do nothing. The British government was particularly feckless, and Starmer's government is not much better, even though it's a Labour government. The European Union is as large as the United States. It has an economy almost as large, but it defers to the United States, probably because we have a military that's 15 times what most militaries are able to do. You can take the next 15 countries combined, and it's not equal to the amount of money we put in to our military, over 950 billion, maybe almost $1 trillion. And yet to have part of that money plus foreign aid going into committing war crimes on a daily basis because of the politics, because of the campaign financing, because of the control of the media, it's inexcusable. It's an indictment of what has become of this democracy. It's an indictment of the fact that our foreign policy has been Israeli-centric. And let me say one other thing so that people don't particularly accuse me of being anti-Semitic, although I'm sure many will. Many of those protests across the country were led by Jewish students. My wife went to Cornell. There is a disproportionate representation of Jewish students on the Cornell campus. Most of those academic institutions, such as Columbia, have a disproportionate number of Jewish professors who know what the right thing is. They are students of the Enlightenment. They know that what this Israeli government is doing is wrong, and yet they have been suppressed. There's an organization called the Institute for the Study of Global Anti-Semitism. They were funded by the Israeli government to lobby the US Congress to divert attention from the destruction of Gaza to the harassment of Jewish students on American campuses. You wouldn't think that this would be an achievable objective, but it was, because the Congress was all too receptive, particularly the Republican Party, but the Democratic Party didn't say much in opposition, unfortunately. They were in violation of Foreign Agent Registration Act, and yet they feel that they're exempt from American law and have proven that that's the case. So I'm disgusted at what's happening. I think the rest of the world would be too if they were fully aware. I appreciate the fact that you are making an attempt to make them more aware. Unfortunately, in this political context, it's a quixotic mission. And for that, I'm deeply troubled. But thank you for including me in the discussion today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moran, for this lovely insight. And I have one.
Did you say lovely insight?
Yeah, something like this. Would you please just elaborate on the point of that nothing can be made politically to stop this genocide? Sometimes we think it's a kind of pessimistic idea, or it's a very realistic idea? What do you think?
It's real. It's genocidal what the Israeli government is doing. And among themselves, they will acknowledge that. But let me say one other thing, since I'm getting a little emotional here, which every citizen of the world really should. You know, there are as many Muslim Americans as there are Jewish Americans. And within the Jewish American community, it's very much split. It's possible that a majority of Jewish Americans agree with what I said. They're not right wing. If anything, they're left wing. But where are the Muslim Americans? A handful are engaged in this. And yet they contribute very little to the political process. They're not sufficiently organized. My sense is that there are more Jewish students protesting what's happening in Gaza than there are Muslim students, even though some Palestinian American leaders have been excellent. But they're a slim minority. The protests at the Republican convention were so-so. At the Democratic convention, they were minimal, probably to make themselves feel better rather than to make a difference. There
I think
has
this is a
to be
very,
political
yeah,
mobilization. There has to be greater engagement. There has to be better leadership, frankly, on the part of Muslim Americans within the Gaza, the West Bank, and frankly, within the American electorate.